Funny sometimes how a little tinker here and there, a little add-on piece of paraphernalia can make all the difference in your catches on ice.
Spring bobber. Here
The Spring Tips Spring Bobber, some would call them, is just such a product.
Oh, there's a nice one. Beauty. You know, without the spring bobber, without that spring tip, I do not think you'd land most of these fish. And the key, now this happens to be an HT, and what I like to do is I'll take just some thin thread, some tying thread, fly tying thread, and I just permanently tie it there. And then I take a little bit of epoxy glue and add it to it. And I mean, this is my crappie rod that I'm always using, so I always want that spring bobber on it. But you know, they make portables, or the ones that you can just stick in the end there, and you can pop it on, pop it off. If you want to fish for walleye, maybe without it, you can take it off, but for panfish, for perch and crappie, stick it on. And so you have many, many options for spring bobbers. And I'll tell you what, if you're not using them many days, I would say you would catch 75% fewer fish than with. They will double, triple your catch most days.
Hey, nice fish, Gord. You know, my favorite spring tip is a simple clip-on model, and it too is made by HT Enterprises. So basically this is a little plastic thing that snaps on your rod, and the tip itself then just extends over the tip of your regular rod. This has got a giant round opening, and I like it for that reason in many different situations. Now, the main tip that I would offer relative to using a spring tip has to do with positioning it relative to your electronics, because when you're using a spring tip, you're making those subtle movements, but you're also having to watch on your electronics how the fish is responding to all those subtle movements that you're making. So I have my electronics right there, and I like to take my spring tip and position it just above what I'm actually watching on the electronics. So now I can see, not only can I see the electronics and how the fish is responding, but I can also see just how I'm moving the spring tip and just how the fish is responding. So I can move it up, but I like to keep it in this plane right here, and if I need to reel up just a little bit to position with the fish, that's fine, but I like to keep the spring tip right there. And that lets you be extremely efficient with the spring tip. And again, as Gord was saying, it's all those subtle movements. Occasionally you'll find a snap like that will get fish to come in, and then you'll have to go to the subtle movements most of the time. Another thing I can tell you about using spring bobbers is that there are going to be some days when the fish are so lethargic that you have to use this as a dead stick. So you basically, what you would be doing is putting it down like that, leaving it dead still, and that oftentimes on some days is what triggers a fish. Occasionally you might want to give just a little tap. Again, you're watching the electronics, little tiny tap, and then let it set. Literally, dead sticking will sometimes turn fish on too. Got it. All right, well, you see the dead sticking do work. Ha ha!